I have a confession to make. When I was asked to come to present to you all, the first thing I did was connect with my dear friend, Claude AI, and ask, what, what exactly is a town assessor? I am not a homeowner. I actually like it that way. When my dishwasher breaks, someone comes and wheels it away and then brings me a shiny new one. There is no lawn care. There is no boiler to replace on a random Tuesday afternoon for the low, low price of $20,000. And there are no property taxes, at least that I have to deal with. Now, I do own a business in a mall, so I rent there too, but we offer lessons. It's service based. There's very little stuff. So, my experience with property taxes is the annual practice of gratitude as I click no change, no change, no change over and over again in the online portal. Everything you've been immersed in over this last week is a foreign language to me. I am not here because I'm a real estate or tax expert. Far from it. I was asked to speak to you all because I'm an experienced Toastmaster. I'm good at communication because I have 25 years of experience teaching martial arts. I've taught students as young as 3 and as old as 83. The way you engage and speak with 3-year-olds is different than how you speak to a 10-year-old. And that's different from how you speak to teenagers. And all 3 of those are usually different from how you speak to adults. Sometimes there's some crossover. I'm going to draw on all of that experience today. And we are also going to have some fun. I know that you are at the end of a very long week. I have a friend who used to be a tax assessor in Thompson, Connecticut, and he told me about how intense this week is for you all, especially for those of you that are in your first few years working through all those testing requirements. I'm sure you are grateful that that part of the week is done. Between picking his brain, talking to Chandler from Mansfield, and chatting with my good friend Claude, here is what I have learned about your job. Let me know if this sounds correct. Your job is to assess property values to bring in tax revenue so your communities can have quality roads and beautiful parks. So your first responders have the equipment they need to save lives and keep residents safe. So children can get the education they deserve in safe, well-maintained schools from talented teachers who love to show up for their job every day. Taxes may be a sore subject, but all of those things sound wonderful and essential for a town to have. And you are tasked with being on the front lines of making sure that it happens fairly. Worthy work. My friend told me, and I quote, "The numbers are the fun part. The hard part is the peopling, asking to enter someone's home, explaining why a valuation is so high or so low, presenting to the community to help them understand what you do, how you do it, and why it adds value to their lives, and explaining to the town why the numbers are more or less than last year." Telling those stories, selling those stories is what he said is the hardest part of your job. Does that sound right? So my goal today is for you to leave with some tools that will help make that part of the job easier. I'm going to share with you some of the tips and tricks I've learned about public speaking from Toastmasters, communication skills I've learned from years of teaching numerous different age groups, and mindset skills from the martial arts that will help you have fun doing it. Sound interesting? Awesome. Let's go. And that's all you all get for today. So back to you, Toastmasters, just practicing the introduction to a 90-minute presentation.